there's a simplistic view of why you don't hear more good news reported. There is none. Well, now you know around here the obvious should always get at least equal billing. Do not take that seriously, but of course if you're the type taking things seriously, you tuned in the wrong show anywho. Just being silly. And now the news. On one world, everyone is born with two personal companions. And while both are already programmed to know their basic responsibilities, with little additional learning needed, it is possible to teach each of them new skills. And a few do one of them, while the other one is mostly ignored and allowed to run its natural automatic course. That may not be good news, but that by God's the most impartial, objective news a man will ever hear. For those of you who might be capable of hearing. To be hip, sophisticated, and bovinely intelligent and accepted, a cow must moo. That's all. Just moo like everyone else. When put in fabulistic terms, even ordinary men cannot fault this. But as far as them being able to apply it to man's situation, forget it. Well, just think about it. If a cow, for instance, began to bark, how could this improve his standing in the herd? There is obviously a pattern holding men together physically, but if there be one in areas beyond that, men seem born blind to it. Anything the mind can imagine is possible, except it imagining itself to be other than how it is. A poem. I spat some spit into the air, and it either came back or it didn't. Or else. There is some air, or there isn't. There was once an invisible spirit that lived alongside of and spooked a certain herd. And while most cows were never knowledgeable of its actual existence, they concocted many strange tales to explain its undeniable manifestations. From one of the blunt views, the struggle to awaken is to the mind what exercise is to the body. Except for the difference that with muscles, all that's needed is for them to be worked back and forth in the same two opposing directions over and over again, while with the mind this will not only accomplish nothing, but will in fact deteriorate one's present condition. One way to keep a thing hidden is to make the effort to find it seem more difficult than it is. But ponder. Who do you think generally arranges this? The one doing the hiding or those doing the seeking? To fruitfully pursue the quest, one must be prepared and able to see the simple in the complex and the complex in the straightforward. A visitor to earth once thought, if men paid as much attention to their minds as they do their bodies, well, they wouldn't have to be just old men. End of quote. There was once a knightly order who considered their most dangerous weapon, not slings, arrows, spears, or bullets, but words. Most dangerous to themselves, that is. On the road, a man stopped a passing stranger and asked, "Can you show me the way home?" And the stranger had such understanding as to not lie to the man, so did not reply. As he stood alone in the station, he thought he heard them call his train. But the more alone he stood, the more that all trains sounded like his. Simple men have a simple imagination, while more sophisticated men also have a simple imagination, but imagine it to be otherwise. How can you tell the difference between the gods of the underdeveloped and those of more cultured men? By the fanciness of the architecture. For if you don't know what you're housing, make the container as impressive as possible. And as always, don't try and find some way to apply this to the mind. I'm serious. I've warned you about this before. One never educated cannot be called dumb. And one never conscious cannot be called, well, conscious. According to myth, there was once a sheep who developed the ability to growl. And as wondrous as 'twas, it seemed to benefit the sheep little. But what was not seen was how much the sheep simply enjoyed being able to do it. Those who wait to be told the benefits of wrestling with the mind's awareness are going to be waiting a long time. Or, even if they are ever told, they won't be able to hear it. On one world was a race of creatures who all had running cars, and whose attitude theretoward was, why tinker around with something that's already working? A lesson, I think, for us all. Men are born in a heap and die in a heap, and no one in life is an individual who has not died first. Men err when they speak of the mind being dualistically trained. It is dualistically constructed. Mentally, everyone is born ready to die and roll over. Enlightenment, liberation, and awakening all serve the same end: to reveal the truth about life. Such ideas as making a silk purse from a sow's ear arose from a few men's discovery of additional possibilities concerning the mind. According to legend, there was once a world in which looking attentively at a pig could cause it to fly. Everyone is certainly tied to the past, as men generally think of the past, but the way in which men generally conceive of the past covers more of their connection thereto than it reveals. I'll put it to you simply. It's simpler than they think. There was once a band of travelers who found themselves in China. And since they seemed to be Italian, they figured they'd come a long way. But they had come to the conclusion that they were Italian based solely on their thinking, which severely skewed all of their other calculations. The invention of psychology was a result of anatomy standing too close to the fire. The simple worry about illness and death. And once they get just the least little bit more sophisticated, they begin worrying about being ill in non-physical ways. Which is, of course, the foyer to being full-blown civilized and incurable. At city level, no one likes a well man, especially one who is particularly well. On some worlds, the creatures can only be treated on other worlds. And if for any reason this had any application to man, just consider what it'd mean. Some sad, perhaps, travel news. The trains running from cow and sheep stations all run in circles. But come to think about it, doesn't matter. They never notice anyway. A visitor to earth, upon hearing one man say to another man, "You made your bed, now lie in it," was startled. Quoting, "Where the hell do humans imagine they found the materials to build a bed?" Yet another reason that adages are not an intergalactic commodity. This reason sometimes sung to the tune of, I already reminded you not to try and apply such things to the mind. One man put it this way: to be enlightened is like being able to see with the eyes you had before you had the ones you have now, which actually weren't any. Which I guess doesn't really explain much. Oh well, adds he, I tried. Those who complain that life is too stressful should take note that things are actually arranged so that man doesn't really have to pay any attention to how he lives it. Feeling that it is stressful and demanding is just a bonus for the ordinary. Historical curio. Our present word, gymnasium, comes from the now forgotten name of this planet's very first mystical school. A normal, socially conscious and concerned man is serious about his position in the collective scheme of things. Whereas a conscious individual is, how should we put it, not. As the physician hesitated in his diagnosis, the man finally said, "Come on, give it to me straight, doc." To which the examiner replied, "Hey, I'm a doctor, not life." Which brings up another interesting, maybe, question. Why does life seem to speak to man in a foreign tongue? And why won't it at least make language lessons available? But hell, it does. And most of the classrooms are empty. One man quit looking in the mirror since all reflections are distorted. Linguistic curio. Our present word, attention, came from the now forgotten word used to describe man's earliest efforts to transcend his natural state of awareness. One man so asked himself, why is it easier to frighten the simple than it is the more sophisticated? And then after a bit, he thought, it's not really easier, it's that what frightens the sophisticated doesn't work on the simple. This realization pleased the man until he asked himself, which of the two was he? And how come any of it worked on him? One man stopped asking himself questions about himself after discovering what a helpless liar he was. And one man decided to go off and find a mystic and from him seek wisdom. Then later decided not to. And herein, thought one man, is what distinguishes the extraordinarily insightful from the everyday average person. Although I don't know what it is. End quote. On one world, all of the creatures continually spoke to one another, even while their lips weren't moving and they weren't even on the same continent. Anyone who says that they are an individual is deluded. Upon hearing this said, a lad asked his old man if he would care to expand on the matter, and yes, indeedy, replied the elder. It's like this. Anything that a man says he is, he isn't. One guy has decided that the most serious, pressing question facing man today is, what is it that life has to hide? Well, that, he adds, and why does no one seem concerned over the obviously unconscionable profit margin in shoes? When one little would-be knight would head out to play, his mama would caution him, when you cross the street, don't think about it or you'll get run over. Certainly, only families with a special understanding of what thinking about it means can benefit from such directions. Sobriquet curio. Our present phrase, what have we here, came from the now forgotten name of the leader of Earth's original pack of would-be transcenders. Curio to wrap up the curios. Our present injunction, get a job, came from man's earliest one, which was, get a job. Which, need I add, is no longer taken in its original intention. But hey, what is? When you've heard 1,000,000 sheep bleat, it's pretty hard to get worked up over hearing yet another one. Which, I might add, does not exclude oneself. A kid one day asked his pop, is an awakened man like a wolf in sheep's clothing? And the old man chuckled. Hey, that ain't half bad. But a more conscious man is actually more like someone in no clothing at all. And they both chuckled. Okay, the bottom line regarding collectivism as it applies to the few actually struggling to be individuals. Anything you accomplish in a crowd doesn't count. The name of one planet is Death to All Heroes, and by some reports, man will never catch up to them. One man so advised his son, to be ordinary is to worry about the wrong things. The kid pondered this, then asked, so, to be more conscious would be what? Worry about the right ones? And the old man replied, tell you the truth, I haven't gotten that far with it yet. But it does look promising. And the lad had to ponder on this even harder. Anything that makes sense to creatures from other worlds will make sense in at least two ways. One lad asked his dad, are we creatures from another planet, another world? I'm working on it, kid, he answered. Truly working on it. Since we've tried to take surveys of it and talk about it in a myriad, whatever that means, bunch of ways. How about, since I understand by some report that life is fairly well tied up tonight in affairs that I don't feel at liberty to specify, but how about, would you like to just get simple as just duck shit on a white carpet? Why not? Because we can always revert back to the standard procedure of having to parabolic the whole thing to death, which is really all you can do with it, except for this kind of thing. Real simple. Here is mysticism. Here's the nature of man. I've been holding out, but I know that just by coincidence it turns out that tonight it's like 27 of people's here's birthday at the same time, so here's your present. Here is, I gave you the biggest shot of mysticism, but here is everything. Here's the nature of man. I'm talking about a truly, fully functioning human being. A verbal creature, Homo sapien, with his intellect ignited. You are born with a body and you're born with a mind. And there are two things you can do after that. The first you can do is simply let them live out their life as they're born. That would be enough to stop most ordinary people. Think about it, because you've got an ordinary mind. But you've got a mind and a body. And you do not have to do anything that amounts to spit to live 65 years, or whatever it is. With either one. You do not have to get to take the body. You do not have to do any exercise. You don't have to do any more physically from the time you're born to the time you die than what it takes to actually physically survive. Assuming that you cannot lay there and from the earliest age on that someone will come over and feed you. You've got to get up, go look for food, go to a McDonald's. You have to go to the bathroom. If you're going out in public, you periodically have to shower. But you do know, you do not have to do anything resembling what's commonly called exercise. And this is not uncommon. You don't do any more than you're just forced to do. You can live and you can forget all the news items, whatever the latest health scare is, you can be an absolute poster boy for a couch potato. You can try and abandon, you can forge your mother's signature to get out of PE all the way from grammar school on through high school. You can do nothing but just be a walking Pillsbury doughboy, just flab. And yet the truth is, generally speaking, you'll live just as long as anyone else. You don't have to give your body any attention other than keep it alive. That's it. That is a fact. I might point out, if you should already know, it might seem especially so today, which is not the point, but it might seem especially so today that your mind might even want to find fault with that and say, well, that, the average person today does have some concern over their health and their physical, if not just their health, at least their physical appearance. I'm pointing out to you a fact, though, and your mind cannot dispute it if you got any intelligence. From the time you're born, you can give almost no attention other than just keep it alive. Just walk to the table, walk to the bathroom. Other than that, you don't have to give any really willful attention, because to go eat does not really require your attention. Again, if you're wired up sanely, you'll get up and go eat. So you can live and actually give no attention, no willful, conscious attention to the body, and you'll live as long as anyone else. You'll live as long as you would have had you done otherwise. What I started to say, ordinary people now would find fault with that. They'd want to argue that forever, and tonight's simple night, so I'm not even going to take their side. It is just a plain fact. It couldn't be plainer. The mind, most people would, this is not the point, but most people, if they were following this, an ordinary person, they would probably now dig in their heels more so than with the body. But with the mind, you do not have to do a damn thing. You don't have to make any willful effort, and you will live out your days the same as you would have if you believed otherwise. Now consider, though, other than that fact, that is simply a fact. You can be born, let me repeat it clearly, you can be born under ordinary conditions. You are born with a body, you are born with a mind, and you can live out your days giving them no attention, no specific attention. In other words, you can live with them to the day you die in the same manner that they just naturally arise, as they naturally manifest themselves. And it doesn't matter, you may die weighing 450 flabby, snow-white, cellulite-laden pounds. You may not be fit human companionship, and you may not be sought out as a social conversational partner. But you may still, much to your family's chagrin and regret, you may still, you're quite easily live to be your appointed years. That is a fact. All right, now, look what you can do, though. Look what many people do. But look what is quite easy to do. People do normally give some attention to their body. There is no real standard, and there is no stable schedule of this, but it's obvious what it is. Most people give more attention to their body when they're in their prime sexual years, and it may pick back up when they get past middle age with most people and may begin to worry about their health. The point being, we have gymnasiums on every corner, we have dance classes, there are people going to weight loss clinics. But let's just take exercise in general. You're born with a body and a mind that will live out, both of them will live out just as they're born and get you through life. But many people do turn some attention to the body. If it's not strenuous exercise, if it's not spending 10 hours a week in a gym, it may be that they are just concerned or count calories or watch their cholesterol. But let's take something that seems to actually show. You can have some effect over the body by ordinary appearances. That is, a person grows up and they hit the age of 21 and they have, let's say, done no exercise. And they're just flabby and out of shape, and for whatever reason, their first wife leaves them, or first husband, whatever it is, and they decide, I've got to get back in the sexual marketplace, or they get concerned about their health, and they suddenly go to a gym. And you can see them 6 months later, and their body has drastically changed. There's no doubt about it. You can go do that with the body. All you got to do is go do it. All you got to do is try to do it. And it doesn't matter whether you have the physiological, genetic makeup to ever become, Mr. Atlas or Miss USA in some beauty or strength bodybuilding pageant. Anybody, again, we're speaking about ordinarily wired up, physically sound people. Anyone can go out to a gym or at home, can take up weightlifting, take up exercises, and in a matter of months, their body look different. They can affect their body if they want to. There's no doubt about it. And that's the most active way I can put it. Passive, you could say, is cutting back on food and lose weight. But you can actually, in a sense, re-sculpt your body to a certain degree. Within the limits is already dictated by your genetic background, which is not all that important. But you can, to some degree, sculpt your body. You can, in a sense, almost redo it. And just take, and when I say that the person, my example, was 20 years old and flabby and all that, that is the way they naturally were. Forget the ordinary idea that, well, he let himself just get in horrible shape. No, he didn't. He just didn't do anything. That was his shape. Which, that's a side road for those of you who are good. It's just, if you get down it, you can see something already. But anyway, it's not that they are now repairing themselves. And the reason I stress this is because ordinary people, the mind ordinarily looks at it a different way. So when I say that a guy or woman has made the age of 20 and have never engaged in any exercise other than what they were forced to, that they are just in terrible shape from an ordinary view. But that is their shape. That was their body left alone. That was their body as it was born, and they simply didn't fool with it. But for whatever reason, age of 20, let's say, they go to a gym, get a trainer, pay money, and they faithfully go there. They can, forget repair, forget that they got themselves back in shape. They never were in shape. What I'm telling you is that was their shape. They have directly affected it. There's no doubt. There's not open to any question. You can see them 6 months later, and you're amazed. They have, in a sense, their arms became bigger, their waists get smaller, they lost, weight. They simply, in a sense, they have taken their body, and without any doubt, not in a sense, they have taken their body and actually changed. They have, through their own willful effort, affected the body. There's no doubt, all right? All right. If justice prevails, which it does, you could do something with the mind. Does anybody ever do that? And while you think about it, I'll answer it no. If I may be so bold, I shall reread tonight's first news items. On one world, everyone is born with two personal companions. And while both are they were born already programmed to know their basic responsibilities and needed little additional instruction, it was still possible to teach each of them new skills. Possible. And a few people do. One of them. While the other one is mostly ignored and allowed to run its natural automatic course. I would bet some people in here are doped up enough that you probably now figure out that that was a metaphor for what I'm talking about now, the mind and the body. People do, from all stripes, all walks of life, all economic strata, do affect the body. But it's like you're born with those two things, and they're born programmed in your case. In your case, is not of any interest. It's only interest if you're an ordinary intelligence and you take it personally. My nose is too big. I always was heavy. It's a big deal to you, but it's no big deal. Everybody is born with a mind and a body, and they were both programmed to take care of their responsibilities. You don't really have to do anything. I threw in parenthetically when I said they're born programmed knowing their responsibilities, and then parenthetically I put in needing little in the way of additional learning. I did that in case anybody went, well, a child has to learn to walk. A child must be taught the alphabet. Now, if that makes you happy, then there's your parenthetical aside. With little, of course I should have said, with little apparent need of additional learning. But anyway, they're born that way. Because you can get by with life with an adult never encouraging you to walk. I know it's not normally done in a family situation. And you can get by in life with no one forcing you to ever learn the alphabet, to become literate. You can. But the news item points out, even though both of them are programmed to look after, they know their responsibilities. They're born knowing enough. They're born programmed sufficiently to carry you through your appointed days. But they can be taught additional skills that we're talking about now, that you can go from being a 100 or 200 pound piece of flab, into you can redo your body. Your body can be taught a new skill. They can both be taught new skills. And some people will, in one case, that is, work on the body. And if ordinary people are following this, I will go ahead and throw it out. You know that they would say, well, that people do the mind also. They do not. They do not. And if you're thinking education, boy, you got way over 6 billion other things coming at least. Plus, if that's the kind of thinking you're doing, you can have 6 billion more things, and it's not going to do you any good. There's only one group of people that ever works on the mind. That's why it's always been referred to as mystics. And it's real simple. It is really, really simple. Let's go back. Because I know it doesn't sound simple. Well, it's going to sound simple in a minute, but I'm saying to ordinary minds, they don't want to hear it as simple. And if an ordinary person that just had some theoretical or academic or some passing personal knowledge in the idea of mysticism or mystical quest, or the search for the secret of life, they're not going to hear it as simply as I'm going to put it to you. So let's go back to the mind and try to to the body and ease up. Sneak up on it. Back to our person. Never done any exercise, and then takes up exercise. Goes to a gym, pays their money, most of you have been through some form of it. It becomes a whole part now of their life. They have to devote, whatever it is, 3 nights a week. They have to get home early, they have to eat early, they have to be sure to have their appropriate clothing with them at the job. And they leave job and they go to there and they have to arrange their finances so that they can pay for it. They apply willful effort. This is not required. You know that. No matter the person who says, well, I was so out of shape, I was ashamed to go out in public. I was almost forced to. You know that's a damn lie. That is someone of just minimal walking around intelligence will say and believe something like that. The person, for whatever reason, we're not getting into that because it's impertinent anyway. The person takes up working on their body. What does it require? It requires their attention. It requires their willful intention to do it. That's all. Again, the person who goes to the gym may very likely their arms will never, no matter if they take up weightlifting, let's say. Their bone structure, their genetic makeup is such that if they start off with 10-inch arms, they may do curls for 20 years, and yet there's going to be a limit. Their arms will get up to whatever it is, 16 inches, and that's it. Their waist will only get so small. But in other words, let's go to the positive side. They will only get so big, let's say in the arms. But if they do squats forever, their thighs will only get one size, and that's it. That's it. But it will get to that size through one thing. Magic? No. Wishful thinking? No. Praying to God? No. As mechanically as everything else in life is, all they've got to do is go to a gym. Well, like I said, if they knew how, I would do it alone at home. But to go to a gym, all it's required, if they go to a gym, and we'll assume the gym has somebody there named Doc, or nowadays I know they're fancy and have carpet on the floor, but someone there who knows what they're doing, and they give them these exercises. Let's say the person says, I've always been ashamed, I'm overweight, or I'm too skinny, I always wanted to look big and strong, And the guy says, all right, take a weight, take what you can do, and this is called a curl, and do them, and check with me in a few weeks. When you can do that with this number of weight, tell me. All you've got to do is intend to do it. You can have the IQ of the dumbbell. Or you could, it can be, iffy, which one. But if you stand there every day and you do curls like this, you can look out the window, you can whistle, you can listen to classical music, you can listen to rap, you can close your eyes, you can do anything you want to. You can dress in fancy workout clothes, or you can wear a beat up sweat. You can do anything you want to other than this. If you will follow a mechanical direction, and you will put a resistance here in your hand, and you will pull the muscle back and forth in these same two, like that. All you got to do is do that. All you got to do is show up at the gym, intend to do that, and your muscle will get bigger. You will affect your body. No discussion, no ifs, no maybes, no metaphysical speculation. It will get bigger no matter what else you do. If you intend to do that, if you do that and you intend it, I don't mean intend for it to get big. If you intend to affect the body to the degree that you will follow mechanical instructions and go, your biceps will swell up, and if you keep doing it, they'll stay there the rest of your life, up to a certain point. Anybody knows that. But remember, if you don't do anything, you will live as many years as you would have. And let's don't argue about it. You just will. Or as some people like to believe, if you really work out and you give up smoking and drinking and fatty foods, according to some experts in the field, some of them speculate that, hell, you can live perhaps 3 or 4 months longer than you would have. So I should be truthful. Even I've heard those figures, so. So I assume you get the humor, because that is generally most people are so-called professionals in the field. That seems to be their best guess, or even the actuarials in the insurance business. Nobody likes to think about it, and every now and then it makes the news, but I notice it sinks faster than the news I'm discovering a politician that was honest, or a priest or an attorney with compassion, that kind of thing. In other words, these little things that make the paper that somebody now has tracked, 10,000 or 100 people, some number of people that exercise did so-and-so and watch their cholesterol and all that, and people have the same economic group, the same age group, that just came home and had martinis, drank beer, and watched TV, and sure as hell, the first group to look after themselves live longer, in some cases up to 3 months longer than the rest of them. And I'll make the news, and it's like let's all pretend we didn't hear that, and you never hear about it again for a couple of years until somebody comes up with it again. At any rate. So I assume you get the point. Constructively speaking, as we say in the accounting business, constructively speaking, you'll live just as long. There is no difference. But here's the point. A person, if we had you, let's say the same person, or 2 different people, and one person gives no attention whatsoever to their body, and they're just wired up genetically about average, then if we look at them at any given age, 50 years old, they're going to be fat, out of shape, look like hell. Whereas, all they would have to do, somebody in his same family, his brother, let's say, to make it interesting, his brother takes up work on weightlifting, exercise, and his brother is a year younger, or they can be twins. His brother, at the same age, will look drastically different. And all it took was his intention. Took no intelligence, took no planning, took nothing. But doing this, doing that, that's all it took. Was him intending to do it. He can affect, everyone can, the body. I can put it to you rhetorically, which I started to, and say, well, wouldn't you have suspect then that there's something similar to the mind? Tonight's simple night. It's the same thing with the mind. It's the same thing with the mind. But notice this, your mind, I won't just blame it on ordinary people, your mind immediately wants to rebel at what it knows I'm already beginning to hint around at. Well, I said it outright, is people don't do anything resembling that with the mind. And your mind, if you're sane and intelligent and ordinary, your mind says that's not true. You mean that metaphorically. I got your metaphorically. I don't want to do it anymore. I have too many I used to think it was old maids, and people wrote and said, I wish I wouldn't make crude gestures. But then some of them began to write back and say, whatever happened to the crude gestures? So, can't please anybody. Well, you can, but that's not my job. In the way comparable that I'm saying, that people can, just through their attention, can alter the actual shape of their body. You can alter it. There's no doubt. It's not in question. It's not tricks. It's not ephemeral. If you keep it up, that is, you don't turn around and suddenly a guy who was fat and overweight or thin with pipe stem arms suddenly looks like this, and you go, or see him the next day and look at him and you go, oh, well, he's back like he was. In other words, there is no imagination. It does not require the participation of the viewer for someone to see him and go, well, yeah, you look different, and then later say, no, you don't. It is a fact, an objective fact. You can do something similar to the mind. No one does. Education is not it. There is nothing that the mind can normally conceive of. One mind to another, one generation. Mine's older than yours. There's nothing they can come up with, which education's always been it. There's nothing in the collective life of man, the collective operation of man, that is even as specific as being able to make your biceps demonstratively bigger, objectively larger, and you can become stronger. You can change the actual shape of your body. Through no magic, all it takes is the intent to do it. All you got to do is turn your attention to it and ask somebody that's got bigger arms than you, how do you get big arms? How do you get big biceps? And the guy says, pick up weights and do this. How long? I mean, how do you do it? Pick them up and do this and keep doing it, and they'll get bigger. That's it. That is it. And of course, there are other, I'm just using an easy one. You can change your whole body, and all it takes is to turn your attention to it. Those of you getting good, and I know how iffy this is because I was even mentioning the other night, if you hear it in a certain way, much of the writing attributed to the world's so-called or believed great past mystic masters, 99% of it, since you insist on a percentage, all right, but somewhere between 98 and 99% of all of it was them going, damn. Or those of you that didn't get it the first time, it's them going, how come I can't stay as conscious all the time as I can be, or as I am some of the time? It's Buddha, to use a metaphor. It's Buddha the rest of his life after his initial enlightenment. After that, everything he ever said or did, if he ever spoke anything, I won't even go into his thoughts, but anything he ever said after that wasn't all the stuff, or not the interpretations you get of him taking all these other monks and anyone who would listen and go, I am here to help you. Listen, I guarantee you, Jesus, Abraham, Zoroaster, all of them, it was all they could do to help themselves. The idea that I'm here to help other people, anybody who, all that is, that just shows a man, again, as I point out, that only shows a man's lack of any understanding. Because any good Muhammad, Jesus, Lao, Confucius, he knows that it is all he can do. Forget him trying to enlighten and keep awake the rest of the world. It's all he can do to keep his own sweet ass awake sometimes. And he knows how. He's been there. He knows everything. He now knows everything that's ever been said, anything that ever will be said about enlightenment. It's just, he knows it all. But he is not here to help people. After that, the whole attitude becomes, it's a serious, damn, you don't know how serious. It is, all right, I hate to push it. It's really more like, shit. No, I don't, that doesn't sound, damn really fits it if you get it. But it's the most sincere, it's a passionate, it's a deep damn of which an ordinary man has no hint. But at any rate, all these things attributed to these teachers that, well, I'm leaving a message. I'm here to help humanity. Back to Buddha, that was one of the great stories, is him saying, well, after that once he became enlightened, he realized, well, now my job is to enlighten everyone else. That I will not be satisfied until I enlighten everyone else. Anyone who's interested, I can give you a literal guarantee. Buddha never said or thought any such thing. All thing he thought was, how can I keep my own sweet ass awake and enlightened? I mean, that's all you can do. And you can just barely do that, even when you know how. So, I'm telling you, now, those of you up to the point that how I got off on that sort of sidetrack was, many of you know this, but also, it always frightens me, that's why I don't ask for a show of hands or for people to write in, because I don't really want to think about it, is I know that many people know this, but then I don't want to ask, yeah, but how often do you remember it? Well, help me Jesus, help me Buddha. And Buddha, I'm telling you, he'd holler, help yourself, I got my hands full. Well, I'm getting to what it is, though. See, that all sounds so complex that ordinary people, that's why they like their mysticism complex. That's why they came up with the idea of the occult, the hidden. Is they want it complex. There's nothing complex about it. It's only complex when you do not know what it is. Because here's all it is. I'm getting around to the simple. Now, everybody's got this picture about which there can be no question, no area of debate, that a man, any ordinary, sound person, can directly affect, they can alter their body. No question about it. All they got to do is turn their attention to it. That's all it takes. What is mysticism? What is trying to be awake? What is trying to liberate consciousness, liberate the mind? What is attempting to become enlightened? All right, I'm not going to talk about the experience itself because there's nothing to say about it, because it is an experience, the so-called enlightenment of Satori, but we're not talking about that. That's just, here and there. You got the rest of your damn life you got to live. That's why I'm saying that Buddha and everybody's saying, don't look for me to, help you. I'm putting words in their head, of course. It's that they got their hands full trying to keep their own ass enlightened. So we're not talking about the experience. I'm talking about the rest of your life. It's in between the experiences, which is every day. With you, with Buddha, with Moses, with everybody. What does it require? This great mystical quest about which I can speak in increasingly and inverted and convoluted metaphors and parables. Again, we're not talking about the experience of so-called Satori or enlightenment itself at that moment. But what is the rest of it? It is a few people attempting to turn attention to the mind. Nobody does it. Ordinary people will laugh at you if you said that. They go, well, crap, you got no, are you serious? God, I think all the time. Yeah. And if they heard that kind of laughter, they'd go, well, no. What I mean is, I'm reflective. I'm very self-conscious. I think about things. I'm not. You're an idiot. No, you're an ordinary person. Now you know I was being dramatic, because in the same way, the exact same way that you can be born, if you're just an average sound person, you can be born and not give one whit of attention to your body, and it doesn't make a damn. Your body is programmed to look after its responsibilities. If you're just an average, soundly wired up average person, you don't have to pay any attention whatsoever. You don't have to do any exercise. You don't have to do any sit-ups. You don't have to go to any gym. You don't have to take up jogging. You don't have to do shit. Nothing. And you'll live out as many years as anybody else. That is a fact. The mind, as soon as it knows what I'm about to say next, everybody's mind goes, boy, you're getting out of line. Same thing. Exact same thing. There is the cutoff line, in one sense, of those who I refer to as dilettantes or weekend mystics, because 99%, God, that's a popular figure around here. I just heard it. All right, I'm going to be better. No, 99% of everybody on this planet at any time, including right this second, that would claim to be interested in activities such as this, who may be out dressed in some robe or might be actively in a Zen school or some Sufi school. 99% of them do not even know that and never know it. The cutoff line is between people who finally, and I can stand here and say it, which I have denied as plainly as possible, but you have to see it, and not just one time. It's sort of like Satori. One time's not going to do it. I mean, one time has got you addicted. It's like you've been had by the world's biggest crack dealer. But one time's not going to satisfy you. One time is not the end of it. All right, in the same way that even though I know that plenty of people that hear me, for instance, have some knowledge of this, have seen it point blank, and then it's gone. Because that's the nature of the mind. That being that people give no real attention. And the reason I kept stressing the body is because that is plain as hell. Any idiot, any ordinary person can see the fact that you can live and give your body no attention. I'm not talking about doing anything detrimental, that you just live an average life, but you don't actually give any willful, conscious attention to your body. You just live. No problem. No problem whatsoever. It is the same with the mind and everyone's mind. If they're a sane, ordinary person, I go, no, that's not true. And if I push it further, I say, not only is it true that it can be that way, you're that way. And if I say over 99% of the people that ever walked this planet gave no attention to their mind, you know this. Any sane person will just laugh at you. You're an idiot. You're crazy. There's the line. There's the difference. What is the struggle to be more conscious? I can tell you something. What is the great quest? No matter what you think of it, I'm going to tell you what it is. It's giving attention to your mind. That's not the experience, but that's all this is. You can call it attempting to remember the infinite numbers of Shiva, attempting to remember the blessed heart of Jesus, attempting to count every breath I take, attempting to remember the 6 billion other souls on this planet suffering, the attempt to remember every kumquat that was picked before its time. You can call it anything you want to, and it amounts to one thing. It's going to a gym. That's all it is. It couldn't be simpler. And it's annoying. It's almost impossible to hear. As I said, it's not almost impossible. Ordinary people, even weekend dilettantes, even weekend warriors of mysticism, 99% of the people that even think they're interested in this, they won't hear that. They go, well, all right, you're trying to make some metaphorical point. No. If I weren't afraid you'd take me as a Republican candidate for president, I'd say, read my hips. I can also, I want to pick this up right quick because I've been doing it throughout the years, and I've done it even recently. Even last time I wrote a news item about that there's a difference in knowing all the train schedules and actually traveling, which sounds pretty obvious, even metaphorically to some people. That what it means is just trying to think about being more awake, or trying to think about being enlightened, or trying to think against struggling against all your mechanicalness is not the same thing as actually doing it. I mean, that's the way it sounds, and that's not even true. Because if you're turning attention to it, thinking about it is turning attention to it. In other words, it's not as simple as it sounds. Good. All right, it's simpler. Good. Because it sounds as though that I was intending, and you can find traces before me. I'm not the first person to ever put it that way, I don't think. But to say, well, just thinking about being enlightened, that's not the same thing as being enlightened. And that's almost enough to get it, especially little weekend mystics to go, you're right, they'll wring their little hands. And I have to say, hey, you're not back out in church. I'm not your mama. That's not it. Because if you're actually giving attention to it, you know that that's irrelevant, that description. Because if you are, when I say there's a difference between the experience and thinking about it, yeah. But if you know what thinking about it means, not what ordinary people, because ordinary people go, well, I do think about things. We've already been through that. And I go, no, you don't. They go, you're crazy. I think all the time. Which was the one that got such a big laugh from this crew, which I don't want to go into either. If you know how to think about it, in the sense that you're willfully turning your attention to the mind, that is the activation of the trained schedules. That is not a passive act. And that's as simple as this can be. That's as simple a description of what this is, and always has been. How much simpler? The struggle to awaken is to give attention to your mind. That's it. Maybe I could cut it down. I didn't plan. But that's, I mean, hell, you can write that on the, you can cheat on next test. You can get that in the palm of your hand. The struggle to awaken is the giving of attention to the mind. That's it. That's it. Buddha knew it. Confucius knew it. Zoroaster knew it. Abraham knew it. Anybody that's ever been awake. Everybody who ever had the experience. Everyone who ever learned the truth about life, which is all that Satori and all that amounts to, is you suddenly realize the truth about life. It's like the ultimate National Enquirer experience. It's just, there it is. There it is. So to speak, there it is in black and white. There is the truth about life, and it's like life, pulls up its dress or pulls open its raincoat, and that's Satori, and you go, oh my God. And then it seems to close again, you wander off. But the thing is, you've seen it. And once you see it, I can go ahead. I assure you, you can't forget it. The experience is one thing, and a man does not stay in that condition. That's not the point. But you never forget it. That's why it is the benchmark. It is simply the benchmark of the whole work of any sort. Because without the experience, the rest of it is really just a hobby. So that's why everyone, for many years, many people, but anyway, did you feel like there's always something missing? It's the experience, the thing called enlightenment, but that experience that you suddenly see life for what it is. But after that, it's, sweet Jesus. How can I get myself back there? Or how can I at least not keep falling back to the same old level? Which is not actually true either, because you don't actually go back to that same level, but by God, you can give it a good shot. Plus, in a sense, it's worse, because if you are a Moses and you have seen the promised land, you keep finding yourself back in Egypt, playing around with the Pharaoh, doing dance steps and trying to do magic tricks in court. You're right back there. And so I say you're right back there, but follow this right quick if you're interested. You can't actually, once you have the experience, you can't really go back as bad as you were, I said, but you can give it a damn good shot, and all of you laughed. It's really worse than that. You can actually, you got to change now the level. You got to change the context of the scene. You can actually be worse. You can't actually go back and live the same life anymore, but you can get so close to it that it's worse with you than it would be an ordinary person, because they don't know any better and you know better, and that's why you think, damn, shit. All it is giving attention to the mind in the same way that I described it to the body. And people do not do that. And if you know anything, you know damn well that you have lived and continue to, even those of you that have got a good glimpse of Istanbul, of the promised land, you know damn well that you can go, I hate to say it, but let's just say hours, days, and give no attention to your mind. And you can be thinking about something you heard me say. You can be thinking about things that you read that Buddha said, but there's a difference between you saying, well, I should be in the gym, and actually being there and doing that. And that's nothing mystical. That's not to figure out and go, wait a minute, I got to think on that. No, you don't have to think on that. There's a difference between being in the gym and doing this and being at home thinking, I should be in the gym doing that. You're either giving attention to the mind or you're not. And it's very simple. Do I have to put forth any exceptional effort, come to think about it, to look simple? I guess at least that's one area wherein my dramatic skills are not actually overtaxed. Speaking on your behalf. Speaking for every man.